Last summer, I had an opportunity to take my daughter Daniela to the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. As we entered, it was announced that the tarantula will be having its daily meal. As we entered the exhibit hall, we saw lots of kids gathering around the glass box with a tarantula inside. The docent was describing it about tarantula, its habitat, what it eats, how it sleeps, and so on. And despite the ominous way it looks, there have never been any recorded casualties, human casualties, because of tarantula bites. Then she said, all right, now it's time for tarantula to eat, and because they're usually fed at night, and now it's a daylight, they're very sensitive to daylight and to sudden movements. So everybody take 2 steps back and stay still. What we saw right in front of us was amazing. Can you imagine a social experiment transpiring right in front of our eyes? All the girls moved 2 steps back and stood still. But all the boys rushed right in the middle and tried to peer inside the glass case. The docent tried to wave them off. My daughter and I looked at each other, and we saw that we saw that there is a difference in risk between gender-based risk behavior. Some of this risk-taking is genetically wired. So I'm not trying to rewire you ladies and to try to disobey instructions and try to touch some scary-looking spider. What I'm saying is, for some of us, risk paid off. Those boys did see that spider up close and personal, and the girls saw something furry at a distance in the now all fogged up glass box. So risk did pay off. And remember, are the boys crazy? Well, the docent did say that nobody has ever been bitten by a spider, by a tarantula, right? So risk and reward are ultimately linked. As a professor of finance at University of Massachusetts in Amherst, this is what I teach to my students. Risk and reward are linked. In order to navigate opportunities, you need to know how to assess risks. In finance, in order to assess risk of any financial instrument, I need to understand the source of risk and exposure of that financial instrument to that risk. Translation: to navigate opportunities, you need to identify opportunities and then show up to grab them. Men have always been better than women at this. They're already ahead of us. So we need to be more risk tolerant. We need to take more risk. In the lucrative field of finance, there are only 20% of all finance professionals who are women. My research colleague, Heather Tooks, and I looked at finance academics, and we found that only 15% of finance professors are women. Women are missing out. As a student, students are lacking role models who are female role models who they can help and they can go and ask for advice about majors, which courses to take, or about any financial advice. Something has to be done about this. The risk of the field of finance, financial instruments, understanding financial crisis should not be the sole domain of men. And it's not just a personal wish, it makes sense. In addition to talk about risk and reward, in the first class in finance, we talk about diversification. In order to reduce the risk of your investment portfolio, you need to diversify. It's stupid, it doesn't make sense to just invest in one stock, put all your money in one sector, being it technology or banking. You have to diversify. You do not put all your eggs in one basket. It just makes sense. So it totally makes sense to bring different opinions, different ways of thinking, different ways of understanding risk to the table. Also, we know that men are more overconfident than women. And research says, it shows, that overconfidence leads to less financial returns. So actually, having women at the table makes sense. It makes, it cuts to the bottom line. So if you're an individual or a company or a pension fund, see who actually manages your money. And if there are women on the investment team, they will make you money. It makes sense. So all women here, you don't need to become men. You don't need to change yourself. You're great as you are. Stay as you are, but you need to show up. You need to take the risk and show up and be there. And that's very important. So how do you show up? How do you do it? One way is to push forward literally. For example, our Women in Finance Club at University of Massachusetts had a unique opportunity to be at the New York Stock Exchange when the opening bell rang. Being there when the opening bell rings, it's a great opportunity, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Everybody's looking at you, it's being broadcasted internationally, it's a wonderful opportunity. Our student group was one of the 2 student groups allowed to be there. The other student group happened to be all men, stood right up front in front of our student groups. So Colleen Collins, the leader of our group, she used her elbows to go right up front there and not just propel herself, but the whole group with her, right? She did it. She saw the opportunity and she took it, yeah? So we should, think about it. Great idea. And, later she told me, some women told me I shouldn't make fuss about it. Not a big deal. But ladies, if you want to move up, if you want to show up, you have to make a fuss about it, all right? Well, not all of us have such gumption as Colleen. So maybe a more delicate approach is suggested. From a personal experience, I had a unique opportunity to get an internship due to my mentor, Andrew Law, at investment bank on Wall Street. That was great. This is exactly what I was looking for. I wanted to learn about finance, learn how finance works, learn how financial trades are made, and so on. But during the first week of my internship, I was asked to make photocopies, and lots of them. Full disclosure, I'm not good with photocopies, and generally not good with mechanical tools. So, in the first hour of me making this photocopying, I jammed the copier machine, and the mechanic had to be called in. So after that, I was kind of asked not to deal with anything that can break potential or spill, and was asked to sit next to a trader, which was exactly what I wanted. I learned from him how to trade, how finance operates, and all nuts and bolts on finance. And this is exactly, which was great. It helped in my finance discipline. It helped me to think and to potentially even be interested in being a finance professor. I'm not telling you guys here to break photocopy machines or anything else in order to succeed. But what I'm saying is use a happy accident to your advantage. Yes? A happy accident or a calculated risk can be great. Use this as an opportunity to do this. Well, you might be a risk taker, but I'm actually not. How many times Jeannie is telling me we should go skiing, downhill skiing? I said, no. She says, it will be fun. I said, I don't like speed. Jeannie says, it will be exciting to spend time with family and friends. I said, I would rather be doing taxes in the skiing lodge. And then I come up with more excuses. I don't see. She says, get contact lenses. I see. I don't know how to put them on. Jeannie says, I'll do it for you. And the list goes on and on. So, all right. It might be hard for me to be a real risk taker, but there is another secret sauce that men have been using already for many, many years in the boardroom and on the golf course. It's the power of social networking, all right? So I actually don't need to be a risk taker. I just need to know Jeannie and have her in my network, and we can all benefit from each other. The power of social network is amazing. There are 7.7 billion of people on the Mother Earth. We're all interconnected. Julie and I are connected by 1 degree of separation. Julie, who is sitting right there. Teacher in Ghana, whom I have never met, and I are connected by 6 degrees of separation. Closer the circle of friends and confidence, smaller the number of degrees of separation. we all benefit from having such small circles. So, in this circle, say in our local communities, East Hampton or Amherst, we're about 2 degrees of separation. We love such connections. They nourish us. They help us grow. In her recent memoir, Michelle Obama talked about such circle of friends. She has such a circle of confidence who nourish her, who have nourished and helped her through her years in Washington, D.C., in Chicago, and beyond. This circle of friends, these women were there to babysit, to help her for good and bad times, and help to empower each other. That's very important, and we should actually build on such circle of friends. I am going to add to Michelle's wisdom and build on that. In addition, to actually come up with a social network of friends and confidence, but who empower each other, who work with each other, make sure that network is diverse, and also very important to have such a network that it's possible to look around and identify people outside of a network that can benefit from being a part of a network and bring them in. And when I'm talking about social network, I'm not talking about social media. I'm talking about real connections based on trust, and to help, and real connections that are based on trust, and they can grow and help with each other. Now, let me wear my professor hat for a second. So in finance, now think about just your own personal life. You guys, probably have a banking account in a local bank. Were you affected by the recent financial crisis? Even if you don't have any accounts at huge banks, you still were. Why? Because financial institutions are interrelated. They're interconnected. I study systemic risk, the risk of the system collapsing. In order to measure that systemic risk, we need to understand the interconnections between all financial institutions, banks, hedge funds, insurance companies, even sovereigns, foreign countries. It's really important to do it. And such interconnections has been actually increasing before financial crisis. So if you understand the connection, if you understand how to measure such interconnection, you can potentially prevent such crisis affecting in the future. So the power of knowledge is very important. When financial institutions are interconnected and everything is going great, everything is flowing smoothly, risk is being shared, banks are lending to each other, everybody is making money. But when things are going bad, things are really going bad, there is a cascading effect. The failure in one bank leads to a failure to another bank, and so on. So it's really, really important to understand the power of connections. Why am I saying about finance? Because that research, that structure, can be applied to our own social networks. It's important for us to build social networks that are resilient, that can empower each other. The resiliency is important, and resiliency is a function of a structure of a network. I had an opportunity to build such a network last year. Colleen Collins, remember that brave lady from New York Stock Exchange? She was the only female student in my financial modeling class. She and I looked at each other. Something has to be done about it, right? So we started Women in Finance Club, which grew from 1 person to 70 this year. We also were invited, we applied and got in to become part of Smart Women Securities, which is an internationally known organization that I originally started at Harvard. Smart Women Securities allows our students to be part of a wider network of students, finance professors, and finance professionals. In this case, students are able to network, get opportunities, get jobs, get financial advice, and just empower each other. So such network is just super important, and Colleen was able to start it. And so talking about the networks and the structure of networks, right? There are many ways of thinking about the structure of networks. Not all networks are born the same. First of all, In order for you to be part of a network, you need to be connected to somebody, all right? You cannot be part of a network if you're not a part of it, right? If you're not connected to anybody. So the way to think about social networks, there is a node, like a person, and there is an edge, which is a connection. Not all nodes are the same. Some nodes are central nodes, like the chairman of the board, or somebody who knows lots of people, the network person. Some nodes are peripheral. You're still in the network, but you maybe know a couple of people in that network, right? Very important. Think about a body. From a person point of view, some organs are maybe more important, like brain and heart, and some are peripheral, like toes and fingers. Important, but peripheral, all right? So, why is it important? Because actually, women and men benefit from different structures of networks. They're important. The recent Harvard Business School study looked at MBA students and found that men who are central in the MBA network tend to get better jobs, better leadership executive jobs upon graduation. Women also benefit from being central in those networks, but it's not enough for them. They have to be surrounded by other women. They have to have a close confidant of women professionals in the MBA network. In my study with Heather Tooks, we looked at academic women and men, and we looked at the success. What is success in academia is tenure, all right? The most important factor for tenure is publication. More publications you have, more likely you will get tenure. Both women and men tend to have the same number of solo authored publications in top journals. So the quality is there, but they have less co-authored work. They tend to co-author less. So women will benefit by being more networked. They will benefit by meeting more central nodes who happen to be men. Personally, I benefited from such a social network. I was introduced to the most central node in the whole finance, Bob Merton, who is a Nobel Prize winner in economics, right? But I took a step forward. I was, increased my risk tolerance and approached him. I talked about systemic risk, about research, and we actually published a paper together that with other co-authors, which was great, and it helped me to be, to become full professor. So that's amazing. So how do you navigate opportunities? First, you need to identify them, and you need to show up, right? How do you do it? Increase your risk tolerance, and identify and build on the social network. That's really important. Take a risk, show up, and introduce yourself. You can start doing it right here and there. Look around. Look at all these bold and brilliant women on and off stage, and introduce yourself. And make sure, remember, look around also and identify those outside of a network who can benefit by being a part of a network. And bring them in so to increase opportunities for everybody. And that's the power of social network.